The Shadow at Black Hollow. The small town of Black Hollow was a quiet place surrounded by dense, ancient forests and jagged hills. Its few residents whispered of an ancient curse that lingered there, one that warned against venturing too far into the woods after dark. But like most tales, it was brushed off as superstition. When Ellie, a struggling journalist, received an anonymous tip about strange happenings in Black Hollow, she saw it as her chance to reignite her career. The tip mentioned a series of disappearances over the past 50 years, all connected to an old, abandoned house deep in the woods, a house that locals refused to speak about. With her boyfriend, Tom, and their friends Clara and Liam, she set out to investigate. Chapter 1: Into the Woods. The group arrived in Black Hollow on a dreary autumn evening. The streets were nearly deserted, the air heavy with the scent of damp leaves and wood smoke. They stopped at a diner to ask for directions to the house. The waitress, an older woman with weary eyes, froze at their question. "You're talking about the Morrigan house, aren't you?" Ellie nodded, intrigued. "What can you tell us about it?" The woman leaned in, her voice barely a whisper. "Stay away. That place is cursed. Everyone who's gone there has vanished. And those who came back, well, they weren't the same." Ellie pressed for more details, but the woman shook her head and walked away, muttering about fools and their curiosity. Undeterred, the group drove to the edge of the woods and parked their car. The trail leading into the forest was overgrown and barely visible under the fading light. A sense of unease settled over them as they entered. The forest grew darker and colder the deeper they went, the trees seeming to close in around them. An unnatural silence filled the air, even the sound of their footsteps felt muted. After nearly an hour of walking, they came upon the house. Chapter 2: The Morrigan House. The Morrigan house was a towering, decaying structure, its windows shattered and its roof sagging under years of neglect. Vines snaked up its walls, and the front door hung crookedly on its hinges. The air around it felt wrong, heavy with a palpable sense of dread. "This place is straight out of a horror movie," Clara muttered, clutching her flashlight. Ellie's excitement masked her fear as she pulled out her camera. "This is perfect. Let's go in." Tom pushed the door open, the hinges groaning loudly. Inside, the air was musty and stale, and the floorboards creaked under their weight. The wallpaper was peeling, and the furniture was rotted and covered in dust. As they explored, Ellie began filming, narrating the house's history. Legend has it that the Morrigan family practiced dark rituals here. People claimed to see shadows moving in the windows long after the family disappeared. Liam, who was poking around the living room, called out, "Hey, check this out." He pointed to a set of symbols carved into the wooden floor, a circle surrounded by strange runes. "What do you think it means?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. "It's probably just graffiti," Tom said, though he didn't sound convinced. Ellie knelt down, running her fingers over the carvings. "No, this is old. Really old." As she spoke, a sudden chill filled the room. The lights on their flashlights flickered, and a faint, almost imperceptible whisper echoed through the house. "Did you hear that?" Clara whispered, her eyes wide. "Hear what?" Tom asked, his voice shaky. Before anyone could answer, the front door slammed shut with a deafening bang. They all jumped, spinning around to face the source of the noise. "It's just the wind," Liam said, though his pale face betrayed his words. Chapter 3: The First Night. Deciding to spend the night in the house to gather more footage, the group set up camp in the main hall. They lit lanterns and unpacked their gear, trying to shake off their growing unease. As the night wore on, the strange occurrences intensified. Clara swore she saw a shadow move across the hallway, but no one else did. Liam's camera inexplicably turned off multiple times, despite being fully charged. Ellie found pages of an old journal in the library, written by the Morrigan family patriarch. *The ritual must not be disturbed. It binds the shadow. Without it, the darkness will consume everything. What ritual? Ellie wondered aloud, her mind racing with questions. At midnight, the whispers returned, soft, indistinct murmurs that seemed to come from all directions. The group huddled together, their flashlights trembling in their hands. "This isn't normal," Clara said, her voice quivering. "We need to leave." "We'll leave in the morning," Ellie insisted. "It's too dangerous to go back through the woods at night." As they debated, the lanterns flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. Chapter 4, The Shadow. Panic set in as the group scrambled to relight the lanterns. In the flickering light, Ellie saw it, a dark figure standing at the edge of the room. It was tall and thin, with no discernible features, its form shifting like smoke. "Run," she screamed, pulling Tom toward the stairs. The group scattered, each running in different directions. Ellie and Tom found themselves in a narrow hallway, the walls lined with cracked mirrors. In each reflection, the shadow loomed closer, though it was nowhere to be seen in the dim light. Meanwhile, Clara and Liam stumbled into the basement, where they found a makeshift altar, surrounded by more of the strange runes. The air was freezing, and the whispers grew louder, chanting in an unknown language. "We need to destroy this," Liam said, grabbing a piece of broken wood. But before he could act, the shadow appeared, blocking their escape. Its form shifted, growing larger, its smoky tendrils reaching out. Clara screamed as the darkness engulfed her, her voice abruptly silenced. Chapter 5, The Escape. Ellie and Tom heard Clara scream and ran toward it, finding Liam alone in the basement, trembling and muttering incoherently. "It took her. It took her." "What took her?" Ellie demanded, shaking him. "The shadow," he whispered. "We have to finish the ritual." Ellie grabbed the journal pages she had found earlier, scanning them for instructions. The ritual required fire and a specific incantation to bind the shadow back into its prison. But the symbols had to be drawn with blood. Tom hesitated, but Ellie didn't. She used a piece of broken glass to cut her palm, tracing the symbols on the floor as Liam recited the incantation. The house shook violently, and the shadow appeared, its form writhing and thrashing as if in pain. It let out a bone-chilling scream that echoed through the house. "Keep going!" Ellie shouted, her voice hoarse. The shadow surged toward them, but just as it was about to reach them, the ritual circle ignited. A blinding light filled the room, and the shadow let out one final, ear-piercing wail before vanishing. Epilogue. By dawn, the group had made it back to their car, shaken but alive. Clara was gone, and Liam refused to speak, his eyes hollow and haunted. Ellie submitted her story, but the footage from their cameras was corrupted, the files inexplicably erased. The only evidence of their ordeal was the scar on her palm and the nightmares that followed. The Morrigan house still stands, waiting for its next visitors. And in the quiet of Black Hollow, the whispers never stopped.